Hello, welcome to the Mark Jonard Show, the cybersecurity show. In this video, let's talk about the right way, the best way to learn Linux. So without further ado, let's get right into it. We're going dark. So the right way to learn Linux is to install it and use it regularly, right? And some of the effective strategies are install Linux on your computer or use a virtual machine, use the command line frequently to become familiar with essential commands, start with a beginner-friendly distribution like Linux Mint, Ubuntu, or Manjaro. Explore like a different desktop, right? And explore different desktop environments to find one that suits you. Practice reading official documentation rather than relying solely on blogs or tutorials. Join a local Linux user group or online communities for support and guidance. So there are some learning resources too, like online platforms, the Linux Journey, the https linuxjourney.com, the Linux Command Line by William Schatz, that's a free PDF. You have the EDX course, that's the introduction to Linux, and then you have YouTube channels. Please take a moment right now to hit that subscribe button and the like button. Once again, if you're being entertained and educated at the same time, hit that subscribe button and the like button. So you also have books like the Linux Bible, okay? There are hands-on learning. You can use virtual machines or cloud-based solutions like Pawnbox to experiment safely. You can set specific goals or projects to work on using Linux, and then you can participate in Linux-focused challenges or games. You have the Over the Wires Bandit game for beginners. You have Linux Survival for command line basics. You have Vim Adventures for learning Vim. Terminus, right? Terminus for exploring Linux file systems. Remember, the key to mastering Linux is consistent practice and hands-on experience. So don't be afraid to experiment and make mistakes, as this this is an essential part of the learning process. Now, there are, great online communities for Linux beginners, and I'm gonna talk about them right now. You have linuxquestions.org, which is a popular forum for Linux users where you can ask questions and get advice on various topics, including installation and security. It's beginner friendly and has a large user base. You have Reddit Linux Questions. This subreddit is dedicated to discussions about Linux, allowing users to seek help and share knowledge in a community-driven format. It's active and has a wide range of topics. You have Linux Mint forums specifically for users of Linux Mint. This forum offers support for new users, covering everything from basic usage to advanced topics like shell scripting. You have Arch Linux forums. While it caters to Arch users, it also has extensive documentation that can be helpful for beginners willing to learn. However, the community can be less forgiving towards newcomers, okay? So, you know what I'm saying? Don't make sure that you come correct. Make sure that you come correct. You have Kali Linux forums focused on Kali Linux. This forum provides resources and discussions related to security tasks and tools, making it useful for those interested in cybersecurity. You have Free Code Camp Forum, a supportive community where you can ask questions about learning Linux and find resources tailored for beginners. You have Nixcraft Linux/Unix forum. This forum covers a broad range of topics related to Linux and Unix systems, making it a good resource for beginners looking to expand their knowledge. You have linuxconfig.org, which is a forum dedicated to various Linux-related topics where beginners can find answers to their questions and engage with other users. These communities provide a mix of support, resources, and opportunities to connect with other learners and experienced users alike. Now, don't confuse Ubuntu and Linux Mint, okay? The key differences between Ubuntu and Linux Mint is the desktop environment, if you are trying to pursue that path, right? Ubuntu uses the GNOME as its default desktop environment, which offers a modern and clean interface. Linux Mint primarily uses Cinnamon, which provides a more traditional desktop layout similar to Windows. In regards to resource usage, Linux Mint is generally lighter on system resources compared to Ubuntu, making it more suitable for older or less powerful hardware. Customization: Linux Mint offers more extensive customization options out of the box, especially with its Cinnamon desktop environment. Ubuntu's customization is more limited without additional extensions. Software management: both use apt for package management, but Linux Mint includes its own software manager and update manager, right? Ubuntu relies on the Snap Store for additional software distributions. Default applications: Linux Mint and Ubuntu come with different sets of pre-installed applications. Update philosophy: Linux Mint prioritizes stability with user-controlled updates, while Ubuntu has more frequent automatic updates for the latest features. Multimedia support: Linux Mint is more pragmatic in enabling restricted plugins and codecs by default for common media formats. Community versus commercial: Linux Mint is a community-driven project, while Ubuntu is backed by Canonical, hopefully I'm saying that right, which is a commercial entity. Performance: in older hardware, Linux Mint tends to perform better due to its lighter resource requirements. User interface: Linux Mint's interface is more familiar to Windows users, while Ubuntu's Genome desktop may appeal more to Mac OS users. Now, you're gonna also want to set up a dual boot system with Linux. So setting up a dual boot system with Linux and Windows involves these several key steps. Back up your important data to prevent any potential loss. Create a bootable Linux USB drive using a tool like Rufus and choosing your chosen Linux distribution's ISO file. Partition your hard drive to make space for Linux. Open Disk Management in Windows. Right-click on your main partition and select Shrink Volume. Allocate the desired amount of space for Linux. Now, disable Fast Startup in Windows to prevent interference with dual booting. Boot from the Linux USB drive by restarting your PC and pressing the appropriate key, often F12, F2, or Escape, to access the boot menu. Start the Linux installation process, right? Choose Install Linux or Install alongside Windows. Select something else when asked about installation type for manual partitioning. Create necessary partitions for Linux in the unallocated space. Install the Grub bootloader, which will allow you to choose between Linux and Windows at startup. Complete the installation and reboot your system. So after rebooting, you'll see the Grub menu where you can select which operating system to boot into. To ensure proper booting, you may need to adjust your BIOS settings. So enter your BIOS menu, navigate to the boot menu, select or set the Linux installation as the first boot option, save changes and exit the BIOS. Now, remember to check your system's hardware compatibility with Linux and familiarize yourself with BIOS/UEFI settings before starting the process. Now, what are the difference between UEFI and BIOS for dual booting? When it comes to dual booting, there are several key differences, right? You have the partition support. UEFI supports the GUID partition table, GPT, allowing for more than 4 primary partitions, which is beneficial for dual boot setups. BIOS, on the other hand, uses the master boot record and is limited to 4 primary partitions. Dual boot simplicity: BIOS is generally simpler for dual booting setups. UEFI secure boot feature can sometimes hinder the process by treating other operating systems as unsigned applications. Drive size limitations: BIOS can only boot from partitions up to 2.2 TB in size, while UEFI supports much larger drive sizes, theoretically up to 9 zettabytes. This is important if you're using large drives for your dual boot system. You have the boot manager. UEFI provides a more sophisticated boot manager, making it easier to manage multiple operating systems. BIOS relies on a separate bootloader like Grub to handle multi-boot setups. Interface: UEFI offers a graphical user interface that can be navigated with a mouse, making it easier to configure boot options for multiple operating systems. BIOS has a text-based interface, basically navigable only by keyboard. In regards to security, UEFI's secure boot feature can provide additional security but may require extra configuration for dual boot setups, especially with less common operating systems. So while UEFI offers more advanced features, BIOS can still be a viable option for dual booting, especially on older hardware, or if you prefer a simpler setup process. However, for modern systems with with large drives and multiple operating systems, UEFI generally provides more flexibility and better management options for dual boot configurations. So that is what I have for today. Please take a moment right now to hit that subscribe button and the like button. If you are entertained, educated at the same time, hit that subscribe button and the like button. I appreciate your viewership. Stay safe and see you on the next video.